What up, what up, what up? And this is the BlackRose Filmcast, first official episode. It's a film podcast where a couple of independent filmmakers talk about movies, classic, new, everything, and give our opinions coming from an audience perspective and from that of a film perspective. I'm surrounded by some of the greatest independent filmmakers you've ever seen on this side of Los Angeles, and I'm your host, Anson, a writer, producer. Sometimes I act. Here with me today is
Desi on the BlackRose Film Production. I sometimes write, but mostly act.
And I'm Britt. I direct, sometimes write, produce, and I kind of get featured as an actress.
I'm Naeem. I'm the cameraman, and then also, I don't know, I'm pretty creative, and I try to help everywhere that I can, here and there. And I'm excited about this podcast because it's the first one we're doing. Yeah. And we're doing Marvel. So,
You're a writer too, man.
I mean, I'm just saying, I'm trying to help everywhere. You know what I mean? We're just trying to get this done as much as possible.
For sure.
I'm Sam. I'm a writer / actor. I do a couple other things, but my main things are writing and acting.
I like the / got some nerdness here already.
Yeah.
Quick shout out to Jazz, who could not be here today. She was supposed to be here in our first episode. She's an actress for BlackRose as well. Sam is guest starring in her stead. Thank you for being here, Sam.
I'm the replacement.
Before we get too deep into it, I want everybody to just tell us what's your level of Marvel nerd fandom. We can start with Desi because she's probably the lightest with that.
Lightest. I'm probably around the 2.5, 3 range.
Are you involved in just movies, comics?
Just the movies. Yeah.
Just the movies.
And not even all the movies, just some of them.
Some of the movies. You got me, who seen all the MCU multiple times, hugely invested in the comics, hugely invested in the video games.
Yeah, pretty much the same. I love the games. I played a lot of Ultimate Alliance growing up, and the Spider-Man game, obviously, and the Spider-Man movies from Tobey Maguire, which I think was when he was the best Spider-Man, was in the games.
OG.
Watch a lot. I've watched pretty much every Marvel movie several times through, except the Hulk. I've seen that only once. And I've read a lot of the comics, but I would say the movies and games are what really catapulted me into the Marvel universe.
I feel it. Naeem?
Personally, when you first said it, I was like, I gotta be pretty low on the scale because I don't understand the Marvel nerdom scale type thing. I mean, really, I think I'm pretty just nerd all around. So then on top of that, I get a solid piece of Marvel in there, which doesn't mean I'm a super fan, but it does allow me to, read a lot of comics to the point where I'm just reading the heroes just because. Then the films too, it also allows me not to compare it with the films. So I've been watching the films and the comics separately and becoming a fan of each differently. So I'm definitely pretty good with Marvel and Marvel history for enough to enjoy what I've been watching. But other than that, I don't know. I don't know if Marvel. I like anime more than I like Marvel. So that's
okay.
That's where we're sitting right now.
That's where he is.
For you Marvel fans, you can understand where we're going with that.
Where you at with it, Sam?
So just say you're in the low 600 to 900 range.
I got it.
Oh, okay. I see her.
Yeah. 3,000 for the sake of the joke, but quite a bit. Comics, movies, TV, all of the above. I've read a lot, watched a lot.
You're a gamer too, Sam. You play a lot of Marvel games?
Oh, yeah. Quite a bit. Let's see.
Because I play Ultimate Alliance and Marvel vs. Capcom.
I'm super excited for Black Order when Black Order comes out.
Oh, yeah.
The one on the Switch.
Yeah. Ultimate Alliance 3, Black Order. Yeah.
Guess that's what I need to get.
Yeah.
I need more games for the Switch.
All right. Did I mention that we're here to talk about Avengers EndGame? I don't think I did, but you clicked on this because it's about Avengers EndGame, so that's why you're here. Anyway, we're about to kind of get into it. Just a little bit there.
Ultimate Alliance 4-player online.
That's the shit.
Yeah.
Well, come on, that's amazing.
It's gonna be dope. So we're gonna start talking about the movie real quick. This first section is going to be us talking about it more from an audience perspective. So just general thoughts and opinions about the film while y'all were going to see it. Like, first, I've seen it 3 times. Sam seen it 4 times. Britt was...
It was also 3 times.
Mm-hmm. Lane.
I saw it that night with you guys. The first time. Otherwise, no.
And you saw it
a very late one time.
you saw it 2 days ago. 2 days ago. What's everybody
fresh.
feeling about it?
Okay.
Oh, man.
For someone that's not a big comic book head or into a bunch of the superhero stuff, just on a outside person watching a superhero movie, I thought it was really good. The acting was great. The story was great. I was like, this is a serious comic book movie. And it was really good.
I was definitely fucking with it. I liked it a lot. I thought it sent off the MCU pretty well for the 10-year journey. But I'm gonna be the one to drop the controversial opinion that Infinity War slightly better. Slightly better.
I think they did a good job of balancing all of the different characters.
Sorry, I heard balance.
Perfectly balanced. Well, it's
That's all
perfectly
things
balanced
should be.
because half of them are gone. So, zing.
Wasn't for you, Pip.
But yeah, no, I think that for the scale of everything, as an audience member, I wanted to see more Captain Marvel, but I'm still happy with what I got because it was supposed to end the arc of the originals, and she's new, so I was happy with it once I got into that mindset.
True facts.
Oh, we're going down the line, right?
Not necessarily, no.
We can ping around.
Jump in.
All right. Well, so personally, when we went, I went with my friends after a long day. Everybody was there, was happy. People had food. It smelled good. We were excited to see it. and then I didn't leave unsatisfied. Although I had a couple questions that were maybe cleared up after some long Marvel conversations or stuff like that. Other than that, though, as an audience member as a whole, I was pretty satisfied with my overall experience, and I did feel a couple waves of emotion, and and they're not all because of the story. Sometimes it was out of my own personal feelings about the writing or something. So it's
I'm with you on that one.
But it definitely drew the emotions out, and then I had a good time. So it was definitely worth going to see it as an audience member. I would say go ahead and have fun. Everybody else in the audience were cheering or crying or laughing at the right times. So it was all right, I'm not alone in this huge experience. So it was nice.
It's true, because even I was tearing up. I'm like, why am I tearing up? How important is this character?
What part made you tear up the most?
Yeah.
Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
Iron Man.
It still makes me tear up.
When you guys are talking about when he's first, but when he all his scenes are kind of cold-blooded.
But not even the scene of what happened to him in the end, but even when with his father having that conversation with his father, I was just oh, that's so sweet.
Deep stuff. I'm a true nerd, and I cried the most when Spider-Man reappeared. I was like, my man is back. The team was coming.
I think the whole fight made me tear up because just seeing all of them together, and it was just something I've never seen on that scale in a movie. It's always been in the comics or I don't think I've even seen it in games.
Not that
and it was
scale,
just
no.
And then when it was Avengers Assemble, I lost it. I was oh my god, this is what I came here for. And then, even though I called this in the car on the way to the movie, that he had the ability to pick up the hammer. When he picked it up, though, I was still oh my gosh.
That's a moment.
Oh, it was great.
Scene still a moment.
It immediately makes you debate, dang, is Thor my favorite right now? No, I gotta calm down. It's just a great scene, but it was great. Then he changed outfits, too, at the same. Thor changed outfits, and then in Cap, it's hitting me with a rolling hammer on the ground with the thunder. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, that shit was dope.
So you're not blocking that. You just have to take it.
Mr. Cap instantly knew how to wield Mjolnir.
He's doubling up with the shield.
No training. No
I'd like to imagine he was just thinking of what Thor did. And he's do I wave my hands around the same way? Do I just do the same thing? And,
this motion is gonna make lightning. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I mean, he's
I'm not gonna have any problem taking it.
he's in the military, so he's just like into strategy and whatnot. So I'm sure like a lot of that probably came from, okay, I like have seen it, I know what to do, because that's usually what Cap's MO is. Like in the first movie, like he's about his brains. That was the whole point with the whole flagpole scene. Wasn't just, oh, I just have the strength to do it. You also have the like, you know.
The smarts, the mindset,
yeah, the mindset.
He's adaptive, where most of the people like have their set style. He just like with the fight, the Cap v Cap fight, where they both chucked their shields at each other, and Cap went, "Oh, okay, that's not gonna work."
I love that mirror match. That shit's great.
It was great.
Yeah, because what he does is he goes for the heart. He was like, Bucky's still alive, and he knew that's exactly what's going to set other Cap off, because he's already gone through it. He's a weathered man, but he knows that this young Cap doesn't understand all of that, and Cap is people don't get Cap the
credit.
Yeah.
I love how messed up that timeline is, even though they were talking about how they don't want to affect the timeline too much. They've got Hydra thinks Cap is one of them. They've got a bit where Cap knows about Bucky like 2 years too early. You've got Loki just Space Stone gone. He's just out
there now.
He's around there.
There's no Thanos. Thanos is gone in that universe.
There's a dead
because
Thanos
he came
in
to our universe, so they're never
Thanos
going to
is
experience
left.
any of the things. And in that timeline, if Thanos doesn't exist anymore, then the Infinity Stones are always going to exist until somebody else does something, because Thanos is the reason that they're destroyed, and Thanos is gone. But that also means Guardians doesn't happen, because Gamora and Nebula aren't there.
Yep, dead Nebula and Gamora in the future.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, But there is a whole idea that the movie presented where splinter timelines only happen when Infinity Stones are removed. And so there is that like idea that there's one consistent timeline.
Oh, yeah.
But there's a lot that you can fuck with there, though. Like,
Definitely.
multiverse existence still kind of works.
Well, that also, because I think she also knows that Dormammu is coming. And the Time Stone has a lot to do with Dormammu. So she knows that is, like, if they get rid of the Time Stone, then that's going to splinter off into that. What she's talking about is catastrophic events. Like, as humans, we are not that powerful to have an effect on the timeline like the stones are. So our lives can be in shambles, but it has nothing to do with the actual universe. And I think that's what the whole meaning of that was. Not that, things can't, splinter off and do their own thing in a human's life, but if the stones aren't there, then the big things that are meant to happen, that's going to be affected.
Yeah.
Big picture, small picture. I'm rocking with that.
Yeah.
Seems like we're all decently pleased with the movie, though.
Oh, very.
Had a good time.
Yeah.
Very. Just.
I don't think there was anything that bugged me.
Yeah, no, I was happy.
No. Yeah.
All right. Least favorite moment from everybody, if you have one.
Least favorite.
Least favorite. You had to think about one.
I want to say it was the least favorite. What is Gamora's sister's name?
Nebula.
So when they killed her in the past, I was like, when did her future cease to exist? And I kept thinking about that throughout the movie. It was like,
it's the timelines. It's the splintered timelines thing. So
okay.
Yeah.
Hulk did his weird, like, the future's the past and the past is the future thing, and throwing that all around.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't think the kill someone in the past and they disappear in the future thing even works in the Marvel
because
universe.
the Back to the Future joke. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. They did kind of throw a bunch of wrenches into it.
Yeah, their whole thing was, if you've already experienced it, you can't change it.
Yeah.
That's the whole splintering. That's where the whole splintering thing comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The permanence of time.
That's a fair least favorite moment, though. Just kind of having general confusion about the time stuff.
Yeah. Let's see.
I understand that it didn't happen, but I would have liked to see the transformation of Bruce Banner to become Professor Hulk. But because it's already 3 hours, I can understand why it didn't get put in there. So I guess that would be my least favorite thing, is that he just appeared out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just for my first initial one. The second time I saw it, I accepted it anyways, because I just knew, I loved this new Zen Bruce Banner so much that I just kind of got over it. But I guess that could be my least favorite.
Okay.
I think probably the bit where Thanos is torturing Nebula, but then they keep going back to the same sequence instead of doing it all in a row. They kind of cut back to it about 3 times where they keep revealing more about what's going on, and they cut between others. I don't know. It felt like kind of the weakest link in things, but it was still good. There is no real weak link with that film from my perspective.
I'm right there with you on that. What, for me? It would have something to do with how quickly Tony solved time travel. I do kind of wish that there was a little more trial and error.
I feel like Tony Stark, though, like, he probably thought about time travel before.
Yeah, he was...
Probably.
Because, like, if anybody has thought about it, other than the people who have been talking about it, it's Tony Stark. You know what I mean? I feel like he's probably definitely done some studies with it, or something similar. That's what I was thinking. I was like, maybe he had...
Wasn't there a line in the first Avengers where they were asking him what he knows about quantum physics? I think it was quantum physics, and he's like, oh, yeah, I know this, and this. And they're like, oh, when'd you learn about that? And he's like, overnight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
maybe he started thinking about it around then.
I think also because they've already presented him with, you know, what Ant-Man has already gone through. He has a starting point. He already has a solid base. And for Tony Stark, he could come out of that with, like, out of thin air with how smart he is. But since he's already got that base, I think that's what catapulted it into the fact that he could just have it happen. And he also mentions to Cap, did you just, like, push time through Ant-Man? So he's all... I think that was the kind of, their little hint that he did have mess-ups, but because of, you know, he's... for time's sake.
Yeah.
He's Tony Stark.
Yeah.
I could definitely suspend my disbelief enough. Just if I had to pick one thing, that would be my one thing.
Yeah, it was pretty much... All that kind of research they did was happening off screen, and it just kind of accumulated in the bit where he's having the Mobius strip go around, and then it happens, and he's like completely caught off guard.
That is
because he's like done it so many times. It's not going to work, and I'm going to go to bed after this, and then it does. And you're like, oh, wait a minute.
I do feel that. If Naeem doesn't have a least favorite moment,
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Well, if you have one, go ahead.
Yes, 2. Okay.
I have the problem, like I said, when we actually were leaving it. It was like the way. If you're just taking it for the films for what they are instead of as a Marvel fan, apparently, the way they introduced the sacrifice of Black Widow, it's for writer's sake, it's like, okay, it will affect the audience more. But I think, although sure he has a wife and kids to go back to, but he's a murderer. Like he's been murdering people internationally.
She is too.
Yeah, but she's been trying to save half of the existence of the universe for the last couple months. You know what I mean? She gets a little redemption in my head, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, he's been the murderer. You know what I mean? They're both Avengers though. You know what I mean? So it's like, all right, if anybody, he's the worst Avenger. So I'm like, yo, he should be dying for writer's sake. For me, I'm like, he deserves it more. But then it's like, all right, so it makes her sacrifice even bigger. But I was also debating, like, yo, he's not actually sacrificing anything. If anything, he's trying his hardest not to get her to die.
We had this conversation.
It's like, yo, all you have to do is really be losing somebody that you love. And that's, and it's mutual love there, or you love them and you lose them, then you can get this soul stone. But that's not what's happening. Like, that's what's happening. That's not what really was said. So I'm like, all right, I like the idea of the whole sacrifice and like that.
But the rules aren't like specific enough.
Yeah, but also these rules are supposed to apply to like an entire universe. You know what I mean? So maybe it's just English. You know what I mean? Maybe it's something lost in translation. Like you gotta sacrifice something that you love. It's really like you gotta lose something that you love.
You gotta lose some shit you really fucked with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I didn't fully understand it because also I didn't want that to play out, so I was already looking for a hole in it. So I was like, I don't like that.
That's true fandom right there.
I also, it's like Thanos is like he's kind of like a mastermind when it comes to his overall goal. And I find if he found out that he did achieve his goal, and then some other people knew his plan and were trying to circumvent it, and he had, I know he didn't have endless ability for time travel, but I feel like there was one or two other options that he could possibly have taken to not find himself in a final all-out. Even though with his personality and his army and everything else, and he's already beat him once in the knowledge, I feel like he could have planned this out better. You know what I mean? His final assault or his fix of the situation, instead of just like, hey man, you know, I already beat these guys once. I got the same team, we'll go beat them again. You know, even though they got these plans, I feel like that could have been switched up. And while the fight was happening, here's a third one.
Oh shit, the third one.
Record. You guys, like I said, I read the comic books. I got into the Civil War, the big, huge volumes, you know what I'm saying, when they had the big formats, so you get the detail.
Exactly.
And I saw the war that they presented. Now, if they can present that scale of a war that we've seen in Endgame and Infinity War, it's like, then they could have done Civil War. If they don't want people dying, like, people are crying in the theater.
You just
people
want to see all the heroes.
It's like, yeah,
they gotta do Civil War too.
Yeah, let them do a real Civil War then. If you guys got the budget and you guys got the extras, I mean, I'm willing to come see it.
I think we didn't have the heroes at the first time.
The first time when they first came out, we didn't have the heroes, but they shouldn't have used the title. But, and I wouldn't have had it. So it's not necessarily a complaint of the film. I feel like they did to themselves, because if they never showed me that scene, I would have never thought, oh, they could have did Civil War. They could have easily did Civil War. You know, I would have thought that if they didn't do it so well in this new one, that war scene so well. It was like, this is what I wanted. I wanted those random lightning bolts to just drop out of the sky. In the first war scene in Civil War, in the comic book, Thor is just dropping lightning bolts right at the end of the battle. And that's exactly what it was looking like. And I'm like, they could have did that. But,
yeah. They gonna have to get there in the future.
All in all, though, yeah. I mean, I liked it. I just had a couple of questions like, Thanos, he could have planned better. Sacrifice or love. What's happening?
So we're gonna use what you got, Desi? You got one more?
For Thor, I thought his character change was like drastic a little bit.
So we're gonna actually use this point to go into the section where now we're gonna talk about the movie more from a filmmaker perspective.
The quirky character thing, but like it was like over the top the second half of the movie, because he was so serious throughout. And then I've seen him in other movies. It was like the heroic, a little quirky but like serious guy, and I was like, then he's like completely changed. So
you feel like it's like off of his character?
A little bit, yeah.
What does everybody else feel about Thor's arc in this film?
First watch, I was like, damn, they kind of did Thor dirty a bit. And then the second one, I went, oh no, this makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I feel the same.
Yeah, I think that was the only route they could have gone with Thor, and everything else would have seemed like his character progress just kind of stopped. But with how they kind of did it, they really... They treated a god as a human for a minute, because, you know, he won, but he knows he didn't. He knows the first loss was the one that mattered. Everything else after that was just him going for his form of revenge, which I think he knew at the time wasn't going to matter. He just wanted to do it to get it out of him. And
how that affects your psyche afterwards, like you fail and then you like succeed, but like not really.
Yeah.
I understand that God to human thing, but it was just a little goofy.
I think
goofy at moments.
I think what really solidifies it is that it's not a big deal to his mom, who has always been an Asgard, who has always seen the gods and people like that, and she just kind of understands like that he's in pain. So it stopped being just like only humans go through this. That's absolutely not true, and I think that's what really brought it there. And I think as an audience member, I would agree with Desi that it's just kind of out of nowhere, but knowing that they're trying to rebrand him after the failure that is Thor: The Dark World, which isn't a bad movie per se. Like, I've watched it and I was like, this isn't as bad as I felt like everybody was making it seem. It's just a little bland. And since they were rebranding him and they were bringing out the quirky parts of him, and they're like, okay, this works now. He's a little more relatable. He's not just a god anymore. And couple that with the fact that he's lost literally everything. In Infinity War, when we watch him and the little pod with Rocket, and he's like, well, what more do I have to lose? And then at the end, when he thinks he's got that power and he's ready to go, and it's his fault. Like, people blame Quill, but Quill was an emotional reaction. Thor is a god. Thor should have this together. Thor should be the one who should have known that vengeance isn't going to work. It didn't work with his sister. Why would it work for him? And he still goes that route. He's a broken man. He is a very broken man. And his brokenness doesn't, like, everybody's brokenness manifests differently. And his manifested into this delusional, drinking himself away type thing. He's not an angry drunk, he's a funny drunk.
And you know, when he first comes up as Fat Thor, was sort of resistant to the idea, and I fell into it a little bit more after watching him. But I think it's valid that people might have the perspective that they played Fat Thor a little too much for the laughs, and they could have sometime played him a little more seriously in his depression arc.
Yeah.
So like, I see exactly what they were going for, and I'm fucking with it, but I can see how like a little too goofy sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I disagree. I think that the whole idea that he was like fat and funny and had those friends from Ragnarok that were actually around and still was trying to deal with Tessa Thompson. It was like Valkyrie, you know what I mean?
So everybody knows he has a big disdain for Tessa Thompson.
Now he has opinions about Tessa Thompson.
All I'm saying is he was still, because these characters are still around, Thor was still in the film, because I believe that Thor, like you said, Thor's a god. In other situations, there's times where Thor is just nowhere to be found. And people are like, where is Thor? You know what I mean? It's like, Thor's a guy, he can get out of here and be depressed and just be super powerful somewhere, depressed and not helping anybody. But because he had those friends and because they took the whole drunken, like they played up his quirkiness, it's like the reason that he was still around and accessible. Because I feel like if Thor was just upset that he lost everybody, wanting his revenge, sometimes they actually take his character's route, which it seemed like he was about to do in Infinity War. I thought he was just about to say, like, you know, I'm gonna kill Thanos and I'm getting out of here, you know. But he doesn't do that. He's still trying to rebuild his lost because he lost everything. He still has the responsibility of rebuilding. You know, all this plays into the reason why Thor's even around, because I think his character would have been. I think he would have left. I think he would have just left and been sad on his own and depressed and soaked in that depression like they've seen him do before. And people have been wondering, where's the Thunder God when we need him the most, or one of our strongest Avengers. So, and you couldn't afford his character to go do that right now, because they absolutely they're gonna need him for this last go around. You can't have Captain Marvel going looking for him. So I thought it was nice that they played up all of like the angle that Thor still has his friends, even though he's lost his family, and that he is somehow, you know, still relying on them, which is an avenue for the Avengers to actually come in contact with him, and otherwise Thor would have been out of here, man.
And so you saying like
I think it was
Meek and Korg kind of justify his goofiness because that's the element that kind of grounded him.
Yeah, it's like now he's more relatable. Otherwise, Thor's like, what's the point of any of you guys? You know what I mean? Like, there's been times where he's like, I'm better than all of you guys, or I'm God. I don't need to be on your team. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm freaking Thor. Like,
It's Avengers Thor.
Like,
First Avengers.
But now he's like, you know, I'm a little more developed, and all because of all this. This is what has led me here. It's not just like, I don't feel like it came out of nowhere. I feel like it was necessary, at least a path that they could have chosen. I think that was the right one.
There were like two moments with Thor that he did so little, but it added like such a large amount of character development. You got the part in Age of Ultron where they're at the party and they're all trying to lift the hammer, and Cap like nudges it a bit, and Thor really gets freaked out. He's like, "What's it mean if he picks it up? Like what am I at that point?" And then you get Endgame, he picks it up, and Thor's like, "I knew it." Like he didn't freak out and go, "Damn, Mjolnir likes him more than me." Like he didn't do that.
Because he's still, in Age of Ultron, he's still just trying to be this worthy king. And by the end of Endgame, after talking to his mom and realizing that's not who I have to be, I'm trying to find myself, he's freed himself from that burden of being like, I have to be the one. Yeah. He's finally gotten to the point where he is, like you said, where it was just like, Thor was like, I'm the god, I can do this, I don't need any of you. His arc has finally come down to, yeah, maybe I am a god, but that doesn't mean I don't need people.
Yeah.
You know, he's finally like, you know, realized what makes a good king, and he hasn't gotten there yet, is the fact that he's one of them. He's not above them, he's one of them.
Yeah.
And that's why he hands it off to Valkyrie, because Valkyrie knows that. She's she's in the, like, harbor helping people and working just as hard as everybody else.
Surviving.
She knows her people.
Yeah.
So, the very last thing, and we're going to go this way to this way now. How many roses would you give EndGame out of 5?
Out of 5.
Mm-hmm. That's our rating scale. We use black roses over here.
Give me like 4.9.
4.9? All right.
4.9.
4.9 roses. 9.
Oh. We're going to be reviewing a lot of movies.
We are going to be reviewing a lot of movies.
I'll give it a 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5. 4 out of
Because
5.
like we just talked about, that individual character development for everybody was definitely like good writing for that film. Like I like that. Yeah.
Solid.
It works.
Brit?
Oh man, I'm gonna have to say like a 4.5 out of 5.
Say stole my score because I was gonna give it 4.5 out of 5 too. Cause it's really, yeah, it's up there.
I say a solid 4.
All right. Yeah. So on average, it's got like
Yeah.
a 4.4
Yeah.
from us.
Something like that, yeah.
Sounds about right. I'm
Yeah.
fucking with that. Thank y'all very much for checking it out. If you're watching us on YouTube then or Facebook, make sure you like, subscribe, leave a comment. Tell us what you thought about Endgame. Honestly, I want to know your opinion. We're gonna have much more of these. We're gonna try to do this at least once a month. We're gonna talk about classic films, new films, all
Classics.
types of stuff. You excited?
Yes.
So until next time, y'all. Thanks for fucking with us here at Black Rose. Peace out.